Welcome to the channel. In this video we will know about how Yuuki faced Guy Crimpson. Spoiler ahead, so watch out. Subscribe for all the light novel related videos. So, now without wasting much time, let's start the video. Yuuki was running from Lubelius where Rimuru, Leon and Luminos was fighting Granville and Chironau. It happened in an instant. As Yuuki and his entourage were about to escape, a man suddenly stood in front of them. Beside him was an eye-catching, blue-haired beauty, wearing a rather out-of-place crimson-made uniform. Huh, who are ya? Yuuki stopped, sensing danger. The man didn't respond to Laplace's question. He was staring straight at Yuuki, ignoring everyone else. Ho ho ho, if you insist on getting in our way, Footman, who was standing in front, went to attack the man and woman. Instead, a figure suddenly appeared and pinned Footman to the ground with one hand. It was another woman, wearing the same crimson-made uniform as the blue-haired one. This one, though, had green hair. Needless to say, it was Misery, who had been busy sabotaging the Ingratia kingdom until just a few hours ago. Due to Testarossa's interference, she had to stop her meddling, and quickly came here thereafter. Since Misery had come, it obviously followed that the blue-haired beauty was Rain. Both of them were accompanying the one and only demon lord, Guy Crimson. Known as the Lord of Darkness, he was the strongest of the demon lords. His crimson hair, a red sheen deeper than blood, fluttered in the wind. His crimson eyes, glimmering gold and silver stars, gazed down at Yuuki arrogantly. Yo, I think this is the first time we've met. You've done well to catch my attention. Guy's gaze was locked on Yuuki. No one else was worthy of his eyes. That fact wasn't lost on Yuuki, but he was conflicted over how that made him feel. When Footman was easily beaten by Misery, he could measure just how strong they were. Or rather, he could tell by the color of their hair and by those special-made suits. Kagali, also known as Kazalim, and Clayman had mentioned these people. These three fit the bill. In other words, the person in front of him stood at the top of the world. His position was Yuuki's end goal. As long as his ambition was to conquer the world, he would have to clash with this enemy one day. Is that so? You must be the so-called strongest demon lord, Guy Crimson. It's an honor to meet you. My name is Yuuki Kagarazaka. I never expected you to come to me. Were you looking to team up? Yuuki mustered a smile without being intimidated by Guy. Naturally, that was just wishful thinking. He could tell just by looking at how Misery was handling Footman right now. It was plain as day that Guy and his maids did not come to forge any alliances. Even though he was faced with overwhelming danger, Yuuki still tried to put on a friendly tone. This was his unique way of negotiating. He would often throw out a wild statement to get a reaction, in an attempt to gauge his enemy's intentions. Ah ha ha ha, you're an interesting fellow. You've got plenty of guts to be saying that straight to my face. Now that's not a bad proposition, but you seem to be Leon's enemy. Besides, weren't you planning to head east? I personally don't want Rudra to accrue any more power. Negotiations failed. Yuuki knew from the start that Guy would not have accepted the ludicrous proposal. But he didn't let that discourage him, instead reading deeper into Guy's words. Rudra was the name of the Emperor of the Eastern Empire, the Nazca Namrium Ulmaria United Eastern Empire. He figured those two had some kind of relationship, one evidently tainted by bad blood. So is he trying to get rid of us before we can run to the east? I don't really want to make the strongest demon lord my enemy, but I suppose there's no other way out, considering how things have developed. He wouldn't be able to avoid conflict with Guy. They had no chance of escaping unscathed. Under these circumstances, he couldn't resort to trickery, either. With all other options blacked out, his best bet was going all out against Guy. Yuuki finally came to a conclusion. Never mind, then. Since we're enemies, this timing is impeccable. Before I move my base to the east, I can see just how strong the strongest demon lord is for myself, Yuuki answered, practically taunting Guy. An overwhelming sense of excitement welled from his heart. He had been hiding his full strength all this time, but he had to let loose against the strongest of the demon lords, if he wanted even an inkling of a chance. The thought of failure never crossed his mind as he stepped forward. Yuuki was incredibly confident, so much so, that he wagered he could beat absolutely anyone in a one-on-one fight. He saw Chronoa go berserk, which only however, this time was different. This ominous feeling was because of the man standing in front of him. Yuuki understood this, but still decided to face the challenge head-on. Oh, do you think you can defeat me? Guy smirked. I suppose. I plan to defeat you sometime in the future anyway. I'm just doing this a bit ahead of schedule. Rain and Misery seethed with anger. They really wanted to kill him, but without Guy's permission, they wouldn't even dare speak. Guy was the absolute authority, and it would be disrespectful to worry for his safety. Guy was normally pretty fickle. Unless he recognized his opponent as worthy, he would crush the enemy mercilessly. Rain and Misery worked hard to gain his approval, and if they were to cause any trouble, he wouldn't hesitate to kill them. Guy was overwhelmingly powerful and could easily beat the two of them. Laplace couldn't move a muscle. Like a rabbit petrified by the gaze of a snake, that analogy seemed fitting. If Laplace tried to save Footman, Rain would fight back. Even though Guy and the other Primordials were outnumbered, the difference in class was insurmountable. If they were only fighting Rain and Misery, then they could probably figure out a way to pull through. But with Guy here too, they had no chance of winning. Yuuki was the first to move. With absolute confidence in his immunity to magic and skills, he fearlessly launched a kick at Guy. His kick was sharp, heavy, and combined with a feint. At first, his foot was closing in to sweep Guy's legs, before jerking upward to land a clean uppercut. Despite Yuuki being the one to land a devastating kick, he ended up scrunching his face. Tisk, just how built are you? He grumbled with a click of the tongue. His anti-skill was invincible and could penetrate all of his enemy's defense. Yet, Guy stood still, unaffected by Yuuki's hit. It was as if he didn't feel any pain at all. He had done no trickery whatsoever. Guy's body was simply harder than diamond. Being both tough and flexible, little could stand in his way. That neatly described just how powerful Guy was. Ha ha ha, that tickled. I'd hardly call this a fight. Entertain me more, or I'll kill everyone here. Guy laughed as he ignited a small flame in his palm. It was the elemental magic, napalm burst, a jet of flames that took the shape of a dragon, diving at his target with its long and narrow body. Its goal was to relentlessly attack the target until they were toasted. Burning at several thousand degrees, any normal man would become charcoal in an instant. This flame dragon closed in on Yuuki. It's a waste of effort. Yuuki shouted. Magic doesn't work on M. He was about to take another careless swing at Guy when suddenly a shiver ran down his spine and he jumped away. Ho, your instincts are quite sharp, Guy said with a smile. Yuuki had no time to retort, as he had thrown himself on the ground and was rolling around, trying to quell the flames. Without a doubt, the effective anti-skill prevented Yuuki from getting harmed by Guy's magic. However, at the same time, the supposedly nullified magical flame was still burning. It didn't behave like a typical magical flame, this one burned oxygen, depriving it from the air. A tad too slow, and Yuuki would likely have suffocated. Although it felt like a long time, it all happened in the span of just a few seconds, meaning Yuuki got off without getting hurt. Had he not noticed the depleting oxygen, he would have continued attacking Guy and definitely tasted defeat. Having realized this in time, he opted to extinguish the fire, despite it making him look like a buffoon. And from Guy's reaction, a daunting thought settled in Yuuki's mind. While he didn't want to admit it, he had to be sure. Without necessarily expecting Guy to give him an answer, he took a chance and asked while standing up, "Why didn't you attack me again? Are you actually trying to fight me fair and square? Ahahaha, don't play dumb. Surely you have realized by now that I have already discovered the secret behind your power." As I suspected, Yuuki thought bitterly. His anti-skill was versatile and could cancel any form of power it encountered, but when it was used against arts, which were made by fusing magic and a skill, he could not nullify both of them at the same time. That was its only flaw, his only weakness. All physical enhancements aside, Yuuki was still human. Even if he could fight toxins with antibodies, he could not live without oxygen. The weaknesses of his humanity, Yuuki now realized, put him at a disadvantage. Guy stood there casually. I know someone who can cancel out magic perfectly, but I would still win in a fight. That's because they couldn't cancel anything other than magic. As far as I know, there is no way to completely defend against the laws of physics in this world. When you specialize in one thing, you'll be vulnerable to another. But you don't only seem to be able to counter magic, but skills as well. Guy, looking down on Yuuki, revealed his thoughts without attacking any further. His lax attitude was all calculated. It would have been easy for Guy to kill Yuuki outright, but that wouldn't have been fun. Instead, Guy wanted to destroy Yuuki's confidence first, and then watch him admit defeat in despair. He had figured out Yuuki's physical constitution when Yuuki first attacked. Guy had already seen through his quirk. He even planned a counter for it. So what if Yuuki was able to cancel magic and skills? As long as he was human, it would be a piece of cake to beat him. Humans are fragile. Their frail bodies had plenty of weaknesses to exploit. Guy didn't need to think too hard to come up with various ways to kill a human. Besides, Yuuki's physical abilities were far inferior to Guy. When Yuuki launched his kick, Guy only left a tiny barrier as defense, but even that was too much for Yuuki's kick to penetrate, leaving not even a nick. In terms of magical capacity, comparing the two of them was almost comical. Guy's magicals could rival a true dragon, so even if Yuuki cancelled his magic, he could immediately recast it without a hitch. If I just wanted to kill you, then I wouldn't have come here myself. Now since I'm here, you'd better amuse me, Guy provoked Yuuki, arrogant as he stood over him. He wanted to make Yuuki desperate enough to go all out. And then he would promptly beat him to a pulp. Yuuki had painfully figured out what Guy was planning, but he couldn't muster a retort. His remaining confidence disappeared from his face. He started analyzing the situation, desperately trying to figure out a way to get through this. His genius brain had come to the conclusion that the gap in power was light years across, but Yuuki was not going to give up. He was searching for all possibilities. The only ray of hope he could grasp onto was that Guy was underestimating them. I can't fault him for looking down on me when he really is leagues ahead. But as it stands, he's a bit too cocky. Yuuki had other trump cards. They were the superpower he was born with, as well as the greedy one he had taken from Mariabel. In addition, he had his creator, which could create whatever skill he required for the situation. Using creator could help him overcome this disaster. You'll regret that you didn't kill me when you had the chance. Steadying his breath, Yuuki faced Guy again. Don't get cocky just because I've shown a fraction of my power. He wasn't being a sore loser, he meant it. If he could make his opponent angry, he would lose composure and make mistakes. That was his plan. As he spoke, Yuuki allowed his power to surge through his body. He now used the power he usually suppressed, concentrating his mind on a singular task, to remodel his body to fit his will. He evolved from a human to a sage, and then once more to become a saint. He evolved to a form surpassing Hinata herself, and ceased to breathe. A fully evolved saint was equal to a spiritual life form. While Hinata was still being limited by her body, Yuuki had reached a higher plane of existence. Now, he had overcome the need to breathe at all. He cast out the weaknesses of humanity and greatly elevated his existence. That's it for this video. Part 2 will come soon, so stay tuned. Subscribe for more of light novel series, and also if you liked it then leave a comment down below.